As the dust settles on another heart-thumping NBA season, the Minnesota Timberwolves face a pivotal offseason that could redefine their future. The offseason represents a golden opportunity for transformation. It's a time to reflect, reassess, and reload. For the Timberwolves, the challenge isn't just about making incremental improvements, but to strategically overhaul and optimize every facet of their roster. Following an exciting triumph in the conference semifinals against the reigning champions, the Denver Nuggets, clinching 3 of 4 wins on the road, the Minnesota Timberwolves' 2023-2024 NBA season reached a startling peak. Still, this was just fleeting. The Timberwolves played the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Finals, and although they gave it their best shot, their season came to an abrupt end in Game 5. Though it finished without the grand prize, the season had shimmered with promise. This season stood apart from what Timberwolves supporters have usually expected. Mediocrity appeared sewn into the fabric of the franchise's brand for years. Yet this year, the squad exceeded those low expectations. The Wolves recorded their greatest performance since the unforgettable 2003-04 campaign, winning 56 games in the regular season, just 1 win shy of the conference leaders. Their performance this season was more than a fluke. It was evidence that the Minneapolis basketball team has entered a new age of brilliance. The change was a deliberate acceleration of their growth schedule. It didn't occur by accident. Despite Rudy Gobert being one of the league's oldest players, the Timberwolves made audacious moves in the summer of 2022, trading major future draft capital to the Utah Jazz and subsequently acquiring Mike Conley. This plan aimed to match the team's competitiveness with Karl-Anthony Towns' prime years, rather than waiting for the young star Anthony Edwards to realize his potential. These moves paid off, propelling the team deep into the playoffs. However, this strategy also came with its trade-offs. The Wolves now face a future with less financial flexibility, fewer draft assets, and an aging roster. The pressure's on the Timberwolves to continue making impactful moves. The front office needs to navigate this tightly squeezed path with precision. Each decision now carries the weight of sustaining this newfound level of competitiveness. With fewer resources at their disposal, the Timberwolves must find creative ways to build around their core and keep their standing as contenders. The twin transactions with Utah have set a high benchmark. This is a turning point for the team. Will they confirm their status as a league powerhouse? Or will this season only serve as a short look at what might have been? Having a squad full of skill comes with a price, and Minnesota finds themselves in the top echelons of the NBA in terms of payroll for the first time in years. Driven by their approach of developing around 3 superstars, they've already committed a startling $180 million to player pay for the 2024-25 season. This approach has rather significant financial consequences. For the following season, each of Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and Anthony Edwards command a pay north of $40 million. Gobert will bring home $43,827,000. Towns is predicted to make roughly $49,350,000, and Edwards is expected to receive $42,300,000. These rates taken together almost run out of the team's whole pay cap allowance. Although seasoned guard Mike Conley Jr. is expected to suffer a sizable pay cut from $24,360,000 in the 2023-24 season to just $9.9 million in this upcoming season, new financial obligations will more than outweigh this. With the commencement of his agreement, Jaden McDaniels is about to receive a significant pay raise. His income jumps from $3.9 million to $22.5 million. Furthermore, the team owes $13.6 million to its standout sixth man, Naz Reid, which results in a payroll that raises questions about luxury taxes only with these 6 players. The Timberwolves have limited space with its financial configuration, improving the depth beyond their top 6 players, or perhaps changing the core group. The Timberwolves have limited space to move with this financial configuration. Improving the depth beyond their top 6 players, or perhaps changing the core group, becomes a difficult task. Given that important bench players, Kyle Anderson and Monte Morris, are expected to be free agents this summer, it could create major lineup voids. This is especially critical. Complicating matters further is the team's ownership situation, which currently hangs in limbo. This uncertainty casts a long shadow over all financial deliberations and decisions, adding another layer of complexity to the team's strategic planning. With such a constrained financial outlook, the Timberwolves management faces a delicate balancing act. They must navigate the intricacies of NBA salary caps and luxury taxes while striving to maintain a competitive team. The decisions they make in the coming months could very well define the franchise's trajectory for years to come, making this a critical period in the history of the Timberwolves. As the team is projected to be substantially over the luxury tax threshold for the 2024-25 NBA season, they must contend with the implications of the second apron, a new regulatory measure. This stipulation restricts teams from aggregating contracts to acquire a higher-paid player, sending out cash in trades, or using trade exceptions accrued in previous seasons, and even engaging in trades that would increase their salary commitments. Moreover, surpassing the first apron threshold places additional limitations on the Timberwolves' use of free agency exceptions. The biannual exception becomes off-limits, and the mid-level exception is drastically reduced, potentially becoming unusable due to the hard cap triggered by exceeding the upper taxpayer MLE limit. Consequently, any salary increases are penalized with higher tax rates, exacerbating their financial strain. Given these constraints, the Timberwolves' most viable strategy might involve capitalizing on the minimum salary exception to attract new talent. However, to manage their ballooning payroll, they may need to consider reducing their salary commitments, potentially starting with their bench players. A poignant example of this looming financial strategy is the situation with Kyle Anderson. Known as Slow-Mo, Anderson joined the Timberwolves from the Memphis Grizzlies in 2022 on a 2-year deal worth $18 million, which was a bargain given his versatile contributions to this team. But now, as his contract expires, the team faces a dilemma. Anderson isn't eligible for an extension, and if the Timberwolves can't afford to re-sign him under the current fiscal constraints, they stand to lose not only a key defensive asset, but also any potential resale value, especially since they opted not to trade him at the deadline. The ideal scenario would be for Anderson to sign another cost-effective deal similar to his last. But with the luxury tax and apron ramifications, finding the financial flexibility to offer such a contract seems increasingly unlikely. The Wolves theoretically could become fixated on a defensive-minded four, or a backup big, etc. If the best player on the board at that pick fills a need, that's great. If players have the same grade from our scouting department, sure. Obviously take the player whom they believe would thrive more in the system. But what we just can't get behind at all is looking to fill a short-term need through the draft, especially at pick 19. For the most part, rookies are just bad. It shouldn't be a surprise that kids who have barely turned 20 would struggle against grown men. But it's important to remember as people begin to slot theoretical rookies into the 2022 rotation. Even if the Wolves nail that pick, the expectation should still be that whoever they take at 19 or in the second round will need at least a year to be able to contribute positively to a team with playoff aspirations. Do any of us really want to pretend to know what's going to be on this roster in a year and a half or more? We don't, especially with the new POBO and the rate with which rosters turn over in today's day and age. The Wolves should just take the players that they think will have the best career, period. If there's a fit issue down the line with an otherwise good player, it's easy enough for teams to pivot and make it work. It shouldn't play a factor in the draft process at all. If EJ Little, for example, is the best player on the board at 19, that's a home run to us. But the Wolves shouldn't force it just for the sake of short-term positional need. The idea of taking the best player is kind of an obvious point, but once you have specific needs to fill instead of needing to overhaul the entire roster, it's only natural to subconsciously box ourselves into specific types of players. Nobody knows what this roster will look like when pick number 19 is ready to contribute. Take the best player and figure it out later, unless we're going for a player from the University of Kentucky, in which case John Mayer's PKP model takes precedence. With that in mind, the Wolves should be looking to add for next season pretty exclusively through the trade market. We understand that they likely will not want to take on a ton of future money. Nobody does. But still, they should be active in the trade market to address their deficiencies. There's especially good reason for the Wolves not to take on long-term money now. Though, as the summer of 2023 figures to be their sweet spot to add talent, as Dane Moore recently explained. Whether it be through a D'Angelo Russell trade, attaching one pick to Malik Beasley to see what it could bring back, or something more creative, the Wolves' avenue to improvement in 2022 to 2023, at least process-wise internally, needs to be via trade. Could the Wolves draft a gem at pick 19 that helps them immediately? Sure. That would be an awesome bonus, which is how we would view that type of boost. It's a bonus, and not something that should be expected. So that's all the time we got for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon on your way out. See you next time.